Don't take it personal. Take the bitter with the sweet. Easy come, easy go. Yo, that's my joint right there. That's why, yo, you do realize that's Jermaine's like best song he ever made, right?
Yeah, he should have stopped while he was ahead.
He really should have stopped there. And you know what though? You know what he's talking about in the song, right? He's talking about like the hair. The fact that his hair is the way he likes it. Don't be messing with him about his hair. Don't take it personal. This is my hair. I could do what I want to do.
You can keep them curls too.
Man, it ain't even curls, yo. Them joints don't curl up. It's like leathery on the side of his head.
His hair looks like it's molded with tar.
I mean, tar. It is so extra shiny and whatnot. It's like crazy. You know, I Steppin Marks J. Live from the den, y'all. LegacyInternetRadio.com, the flagship show here Mondays 7 to 9 here on LegacyInternetRadio.com, Winamp, as well as on Shoutcast, Loud City, MixLR. We here for y'all every single week. A couple of quick things that I want to get into in the what the hell segment. I had somebody ask me about what the hell before. They was like, sometimes you do stuff in what the hell that's not really a what the hell. When what the hell was conceived, it was basically a segment that we did where we talked about stuff that literally made your, you know, the eyebrow raise, made you go like, seriously, what the hell? But sometimes in what the hell we get into stuff that's not necessarily eyebrow raising. That's just kind of what's going on in the news segment, and that's kind of what we doing tonight. Now I got a couple that's going to trip you out. We got time, we'll get to them. But the first thing I want to do is I want to just kind of go around the room, and we don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to start with SY, go to Steven, and then Carlton, and then I'm going to come to me. I'll just ask the question, get your word on it, and then we'll move on to something else. But Nelson Mandela, we know, has been in the hospital for the last few weeks, and we know that at 94 years old, the likelihood of him coming home this time is not high. We hope that he does, but we don't think that he will. Respiratory issues, we know that he's had lung issues for the last couple of years, retired from public view about a decade ago, and this time that he's gone into the hospital, you know, he's been downgraded to critical condition, and he's just holding on. We know that he's been in the hospital for a while. We've also heard that he's on respirators and things of that sort. So here's the question. Civil rights reasons. We know that he is an icon in South Africa, obviously, but he's also an icon here in the United States of America because apartheid very closely mirrors the plight of the black community here in the United States with regards to the civil rights movement and things of that sort. So I'll ask you this. We know he spent 27 years in prison, got out in 1990. 4 years later, was elected the first president of South Africa, the first black president of South Africa, you know, in his 70s in 1994, and was a president for several years at that time. That's why I'll start with you. When you think of Nelson Mandela, what is your thoughts? Just give me what you think of him real quick, and then we'll just move it around the room. Steven, pick up when she's done.
I just think he is so strong and so giving, so willing to want to do good. I think it's a shame that he is sick now after spending so much time in jail, not being able to live his life and help his people the way that he wanted to. So I just think it's really sad now that he's sick, and they're going to lose probably the greatest thing for them. You know, we're going to lose a good idol.
But you have to understand, you're going to lose him regardless. I mean,
I understand that.
The time has to happen.
I understand that, but the sad part to me is that he lost so much time by being in jail.
Well, you don't know that.
He did.
You don't know that. No.
What could he?
Think about it.
What could he do?
Think about it. That life was a regimen on him that didn't have the stress of certain outside factors that could have influenced how his life changed or been different throughout time. If you're in prison, you're going to be restricted to your movements, your diet, and what you do outside of in that little cage. Outside of that cage, he could have had an assassination attempt. He could have been poisoned.
But he would have had an opportunity, though.
But again, you're asking for what could have happened versus what did happen. It's like saying, if you can go back in life, go back and change one thing in your life, what would you do? You know, if you change that one thing, you change everything about you today.
Okay, but I see what you're saying. Okay, on that note, I see what you're saying, but the aspect is that his choice, you have a choice. In his situation, he did not have a choice. So that's one aspect. The other aspect going along is that, I hope is a lesson to young people around the world that you must make an effort to maximize every single opportunity. It's not about making money, but about making a difference. What are you leaving left in this world? And this man left such a strong, lasting legacy. Not just there wearing the team jersey in his for the country during the soccer game, but just the cultural influence. And you saw how it helped a lot of different other cultures, from in India to Australia to a lot of African Americans or other minority groups around the world to be able to stand up because of the strength that this man shown. Not only that, but the level of maturity and how he handled himself as a character, as a man. That's something that that sticks with me, and that regardless of a situation, how you focus yourself to come out and still hold that anger and apply that anger in the most positive way possible.
I'm going to get a couple of quick hits in from the MixLR page. Simone is listening to us. Appreciate your support, Simone. Simone is in New Jersey. Listening to us, kind of going back a couple of segments ago. She's asking how much money don't people spend on food that they don't eat. So that's what she says. Author Desiree Monique is saying, when we talked about your favorite kids, she says she don't have a favorite yet. I'm not sure how many she has, but girl, I know you got a favorite. Come on now, don't even go there. But and she also is loving Jermaine Jackson's Don't Take It Personal. Carlton Banks, I'll give you an opportunity to respond to the conversation that you're having with Steven before I kind of jump in and say my piece on it.
I understand what he's saying. The thing I still go by, and this is my gun. If I change one thing about me, I change who I am today. Me personally, I like who I am today. My history has already been written from what I've already done. If you do one thing different, then that one thing different changes everything about you. Nelson Mandela was meant, and again, this is me, he was meant to spend time in jail, which did a lot of things for him, which got people to follow him and support him, that if he had been out today, or if today was then, he would not have had that same support.
So I guess it does make him being in jail does make that part of his legacy.
It adds to his legacy. It makes him a martyr. I understand where he's coming from. It's one of those situations where I don't want to agree with him because I don't like the point he's making.
You're doing it again?
No, I'm not going to directly agree with him because I really don't like the point he's making, but I understand what he's saying about how your experiences and the things that happen to you in your life are the total of what is who you are, what is your legacy. And Carlton, please correct me if I'm wrong, paraphrase what I think I hear you saying. The fact that he spent 27 years in prison is a large part of the legacy of Mandiba, Nelson Mandela. It's in large part of who he is and why we view him the way he is. And because of that, that is the reason why he becomes the worldwide icon at 94 years old, where the entire world is waiting for word of his passing because we know it's coming. 94 years old, been in the hospital for 3 weeks. We know it's coming. Let's not be naive about this. So I understand where you're coming from, and I'm certainly not going to attack you on that like I do with some of the points that you make. However, I will say this. When you are someone whose job it is, or not even job, your calling, when your calling is to be one of the people, to be someone whose job or calling it is to be at the forefront of a movement that is designed to advance the plight of the misfortunate and the down-pressed. If you are that person, and because of your efforts, you are forced to disappear, hopefully not for life like Malcolm and Martin did, but for 27 years like Nelson Mandela did, your life takes a detour that you cannot overcome from. And because we do not know what his course would have been had he not been sentenced to prison for all those years, I just can't say that I'm okay with that. Now, I understand where you're coming from, so I'm certainly not attacking you because you make a great point. We understand Nelson Mandela as he is because of that 27 years, and you cannot erase that from his legacy. And that is a very fair and honest point that you make. But my thing is, if you take Martin Luther King Jr., And instead of murdering him like the United States government did, if you instead put him in prison for 27 years and he comes out, what happens? You still have Martin Luther King. You know what I'm saying? You don't have a dead guy who every single person born after April 4th, 1968, who only knows like they know Jesus. Because you know Jesus from a book, and you know Martin Luther King from, guess what? A book. You know what I mean? Like, you don't remember him. You didn't see him. You didn't feel him. You didn't get the energy that the people who were alive at that time got. You know what I mean? And the same with the people who look at Nelson Mandela. So I understand, man. I respect where you're coming from, because where you're coming from is a place of faith, from a place of honesty, from a place of just being honest and keeping it real, and I respect that, and I respect that. And you know, normally I would want to go after you on something like that, but I just have no room to do it. So I appreciate that statement. Ain't no #Steppin Marks J, live from the den, LexiInternetRadio.com, 804-402-2893 to be down with us tonight. We appreciate it. I got an interesting story that I want to get into, and I know we talked a lot, and I'm gonna get with you on this one first, Stephen. We talked a lot last week, and in the previous week, not just on the show, but just pop culture wise, and just in conversations that we've had with our own friends, whether it be black people, white people, Latino people, just people in general. Talked a lot about Paula Deen and some of the things that she has said and some of the consequences that she has been forced to suffer. And we had interesting debate about that, Carlton and I, last week on the show, and I'm guessing that we're going to talk more about that tonight. But one thing that I want to introduce to the discussion before we get directly to Paula Deen is another person who is in the media, and I don't know that you guys have heard about this. Now, this is not someone who has the name as big as Paula Deen was. I would venture to say that this person is someone that 99% of the people who are listening to us right now, including the four of us in this room, have never heard the name Chrissy Biasalo. Chrissy Biasalo. Chrissy Biasalo is a woman that is on a TV show. She is on MasterChef. MasterChef is a TV show, if I'm not mistaken, is on I think it's on Fox Network or whatever it is. The cooking show. Mm-hmm. It's a cooking show, cooking competition show. Chrissy Biasalo has immersed herself in controversy with a few racially charged tweets of her own. What she and some of the wannabe celebrities haven't quite wrapped around their heads is your Twitter timeline never goes away. If you're listening to us right now, if you put something on Facebook, Twitter, MySpace back when they actually were alive, it's going to be there forever. So make sure that you use prudence and forethought before you actually do it. However, back in 2012, she is watching a basketball game. And as she's watching the basketball game, she tweets, "Why do the 76ers keep coming up in my who to follow? I hate in all caps, basketball, NBA, equals N-words bouncing around." Yeah, this is what she said. In another similarly charged racial tweet, she wrote, "Better make sure you're on top when sleeping with a better make sure you're on top when sleeping with a black guy, otherwise it's probably rape." Yeah. Now, here's the thing. I don't give a damn if she's on a cooking show. I really don't. I don't care if she's on a cooking show. However, the point that I want to highlight, Stephen, I know I said I will come to you first, and I will. The point that I want to highlight, and just in interest of full disclosure, she has since deleted her Twitter page now. This was a year ago, and now she's on television. This is from breakingbrown.com. It's a website here. Steve, I'm coming to you first. A lot of people feel like they can go on Facebook and Twitter and say whatever the hell they want. You know, if Ruben was still with us and we had him on the phone and we appreciate his participation, if he was still with us, he would call them Carlton Banks text message gangsters.
Yep.
He would call them text message gangsters because you can sit behind your computer, Stephen, and you can say whatever the hell you want without being charged with dealing with it. If someone doesn't like what you said and they want to type something back to you, cool, but they ain't gonna punch you in the face. Mm-hmm. If they saw you in the street and you said something like that, they might punch you in the face. So here's a question I'm gonna ask you. Do we live in a world where we, as black people, and I'm going to ask you a question, and if you listen to this show, you already know what my response is going to be. However, Stephen, do we live in a world where we as black people create or help create a climate where people outside of the black community feel empowered to use a word that is so negative and so nasty and so vile, and it was created for the sole purpose of disrespecting and denigrating and killing our spirit? Do we create or help create a climate that empowers those people to continue using it in a way that they may not feel the fact that they're using it is as powerful as it may have been generations past? Now, in the interest of full disclosure, the people who are listening to us may not know about Chrissy Biasalo. I don't know how old she is, but I'm looking at this picture. My best guess, Stephen, correct me if I'm wrong, I would say that she's in her mid-20s to early 30s at the very latest. You're looking at the picture. Would you agree that's a fair assessment?
That's a fair assessment.
Okay, now we know Paula Dean is 67 years old and grew up in Georgia. A little different from her. But for this white girl here, what's your thoughts on the way I set it up?
We do create a climate, and in addition, I would like to add is that our lack of participation in other cultures standing up for what's right also creates a climate. We are not just in the music, but the fact that people who's just willing to say, oh, that's just them, let it go, it don't mean anything. No matter how you spell a word, reappropriate a word, it's such a bad word, and we should not be able to use it. Now, I know we went through all these things about the death of the word. We had funerals, we had all these other things on TV, but it's more than that, because that just comes across as as foolishness, that we're just not taking it seriously as a whole. And the fact that we're allowing it and not checking ourselves, checking our children, checking our other adults from using it, and not in the right context of historical or that type of aspect, that creates a problem. And then we earlier we talked about Jay-Z, but every other word in his album, he still says the word. Any other current artist or what have you, still he says the word. So for me personally, it creates a problem. And then when I go to a job interview and or any other situation, I hear people refer to me as that and think it's cool, I have a problem with that, and I tell them I'm not that. But they say, well, you allow everybody else. Personally, I don't. I check people, but then people get mad at me saying I'm wrong. It's just a bad thing, and it's something that you don't even see in other cultures doing so much. But it's such a pronounced thing that we were loud and proud with it, and that's just not the same. I feel bad that we have Nelson Mandela, we have King, and all these other stuff.
I think that it's more, part of what you're saying. We as a people should be more responsible for our children and teaching them, their history and what's acceptable and how to be respected. And at the same time, anyone outside of my race will also learn how to respect me and what to say to me. And if we as a people did that, we wouldn't have this here girl running her mouth, we wouldn't have Paula Dean running her mouth, and we wouldn't have to worry about anybody saying the N-word. And if we did that, we wouldn't have rap music with a whole bunch of the N-words in it, because we all know how to respect ourselves and what you should just period, how to respect yourself as an individual, your people.
But how come we allow, we celebrate Samuel Jackson, we celebrate Chris Tucker, for example, using the word exclusively, but then we don't, as a nation, we're not, or a community, we're not checking them.
That goes right back to when you were a kid and your mama said, if you see my son not behaving, you bust him.
Thank you.
You let him know. Some fool came behind that was born in the freaking 80s, these kids, and they're like, oh yeah, I wish somebody would touch my kid. And now the whole thing, now you're afraid to say something. When you hear somebody's kid saying something, you're afraid to say something about it because you don't know if the kid is going to say something or the mother or the father is going to want to come back and start an attack. So something's wrong. If you would have left it alone and let everybody, the village, raise the child, then we wouldn't have this BS that we have going on right now.
We got away from that, and then at the same time, we've gotten comfortable. There's a level of apathy.
I can't see getting comfortable with being disrespected.
No, I'm talking about
period.
the youth. I'm talking about you because overall we're able to do certain things.
I don't want to blame the youth. It's not their fault. It's mommy, daddy, auntie, uncle. It's everyone around them. Somebody raised this kid.
Yes.
Somebody bought this. My children are not out cursing this one, that one, and or the other. And if they did, and they know that if they see any of my friends or any of my family members, they will get their butts laid out.
I personally won't let other kids like hang around other ones. Like I went to a store recently, saw some kids, he was 18, 19, he was at Wawa's with another friend, some other kids and everything, saying the word and everything. I said, excuse me? Oh shoot. And he saw me. And he knew I didn't said that. First of all, I went to his kid. He said, I don't know you. You can't tell me what to do. And I said, I will sit here and jack you through this window.
Yeah, they will say something back to you. They will want to fight you. Then their parents will have something to say because somebody says something to their
and
kid.
I will sit there and tell their parents too,
Okay,
because I'd
this
rather
is a lack of teaching.
I'd rather be me who check you versus the police and your son in handcuffs.
Yeah, but they're
or
not
better yet,
seeing
in
that.
death.
They're not seeing that this is bad. This is wrong. They're not seeing that.
Right.
So shame on the parents, shame on the families for bringing up your children and being comfortable with them not caring about themselves, not caring about you.
Exactly. And what it could affect you down the line and how the world, like I bring an example in the real world, when I hear that in the office and oh my gosh, I didn't think Steven was a nigga.
You know what's crazy right now? I'm watching y'all dialogue and I stepped back and I didn't say anything for a reason because I'm watching y'all and I'm watching y'all's body language. And I'm seeing the pain right now on SY's face. I see the pain on her face in a discussion. And it's not like pain because she's having issues with Steve. It's not that. The pain that I see in your face comes from the fact that our children, our community continues to perpetuate this nonsense as if it's okay. You know what I mean? I listen to the music, in the interest of full disclosure, some of my favorite songs in hip hop history have that word in it. You know what I mean? So I don't want to sit here and be a hypocrite. However, I got issues with how we use it. And the reality is, while I don't want to hear nobody using it, yeah, it's worse when white people say it. It just is. And I think one thing that I think our white brothers and sisters who are liberal and who are fair-minded and who are, understanding of the plight that we have in the black community, I guess they would have been abolitionists 200 years ago. As much as you try to understand and you fight with us, you ain't us. You can't be us, and you ain't gonna understand us.
You'll never know.
You just won't get it. And the fact that we have to tell you that you won't get it and you get mad at us, because I know some of y'all are out there, and it's cool. I love y'all. I know of at least one person who I have this dialogue with all the time, and I hope you're listening. The reality is, I ain't gonna never understand what it's like to be white. And you ain't never understand what it's like to be black. Now, we can try to build together, and we can try to move together, and we can try to understand each other. You know what I'm saying? But try to understand and understand is two different things. And at the end of the day, you just not necessarily going to get it completely. There's some things that you just going to have to let me go. You know what? Let me just go ahead and tell you this how it's going to be. Don't ask me no questions. Just roll with this one for me. And any young person, young black person that's using this word, let me just say this, because I said this last week. I'm going to say it again. I know we got new listeners listening to us. Maybe you didn't get a chance to hear me when I said this last week. It's never okay to say this word. It's just not. Because do we hear music and songs and stuff with it? Yes, we do. Do we sing the songs along? Yeah. When I'm singing, NWA songs or Snoop songs or something like that, I usually, transfer the word brother for that word. So that I can still be in the vibe with it. I mean, I ain't no hypocrite. I'm going to keep it real. Yeah, I still love them songs. But young black people that use this word is different than old white people who use this word.
It's a different decade.
It's a different decade, but it's also a different mentality. Because if I walk up to Steven, walk with me on this one for a second. If I walk up to you and I say, yo, what's up, my aunt? And I give you a pound and the bro hug, you know what I mean, and you're accepting of that type of jargon and that type of engagement, you know, is very, very different than me doing that and having conversations with you and us sitting on the stoop and we seeing our homies walk past us and say, yo, look at that NSY. Or we see our white homie and say, yo, look at that and, you know, Abner. You know what I mean? You know, because the young people, everybody is that word. You know what I mean? So this tells me that they don't understand.
They have no idea
the history behind it, the power behind it. It becomes, in a sense, a term of endearment because at a time now that I'm understanding what they mean when they say that, you know, the young people who don't know no better and you know who they are, it's one thing when they say that. Young people who you know better, who use it as a term of agreement, they do not get a pass. And you know the difference between the young people who know better and the young people who don't know better. They still don't get a pass, either one. But the ones who know better are a little bit more harder on than others. So, Stephen, I'm gonna let you get a word, and let me just finish this last point. Those people are different, and I don't know this young girl, you know, from Master Chef and who she is and where she grew up and what her lineage is and what her history is and what, you know, Chrissy Biasalo is her name. I don't know nothing about her, but I know Paula Deen grew up. She was born in 1946 or 7 in Georgia. And I also know that if you grew up in 1946 or 7 in Georgia, you remember Bull Connor. Bull Connor was the police commissioner in Birmingham, Alabama. He's the guy that turned the water hoses on black people who were marching in the 60s. And if you were born in 1946 or 47 in Georgia, you were probably in your mid to late teens during the early 60s. You remember that. You remember what Bull Connor was saying. You remember what he was calling those people. And you remember the feelings behind it. You should also know that it's not okay in 2013 to use that kind of terminology. Now, people want to trip. Let me just make this last point. I know I keep saying let me just make this last point, but let me just make this last point for real. We know that she has been saying that word 20 years ago. And you got a lot of people that want to harp on the fact that she said it 20 years ago. But what about the fact that she's in court now? The whole point of this coming out is because she's in a deposition now because of racial discriminatory things that she's doing now. Things like having dark-skinned black people like you and like me and like you in the kitchen where nobody can see them. But the Yala girls and the Yala guys, that's kind of how we speak, y'all, if you don't know, Yala, the light-skinned people out in the front where people can see them, you know what I mean, which is reminiscent to the field and the houses, you know what I mean,
subliminal messages.
or certain subliminal messages, or, you know, having one bathroom for the black people and other black bathrooms for the other people, you know, stuff like that. Or how about wanting to have, you know, black people, black middle-aged men, which Stephen, you and I and Carlton Banks, as much as we fight it, that's what we are. That's what we are. In white shirts and bow ties, serving her friends. So it's not the same for people who want to support Paula Deen and people that want to say, you know what, give her a second chance. It is a mindset. No one is walking around saying that she's walking around calling every black person she meets an N-word. But you know what? You got caught. You apologizing because you got caught. Many times black people get caught doing stuff and we got to suffer for a whole lot more for a whole lot less. So I am not crying a tear for Paula Deen. Steve.
My thing is this: when it comes to the N-word or things like this, if you lay down for this, what else are you laying down for? And it's telling all the other people out there in the world that we're willing to accept anything. That's why you see even more. You can say what you want with Obama, whoever in office, but we still have more African American young boys and girls being shot, deaf, police attacking. We have no jobs, all these different things, and they're not saying, "Well, you won't stand up for it. You wait, so why should you?" We're not even standing up. We're looking at it as, oh, we're looking for our leaders. We don't even stand up for ourselves as a community without a leader to do it. You don't even see the NAACP standing up for this.
We're not even backing the people who are trying to help us.
You should say, even myself with the stuff I've done or anybody else, we're not backing it. But then you jump at us. So it's like, what are you willing to take a stand for? Are you going to take a stand because I put down your favorite rapper at the moment? or I'm put down Lil Wayne or whoever else, but then you won't stand up for me working on trying to set up an education center. You won't stand up for you doing what your family with
it's like every man
overseas.
for himself.
Exactly, instead of community. And you will not. You don't see it in other cultures, but we dang sure do it for ourselves.
It's just too bad.
Ain't no how stepping with Marcus J. Last thing I want to get into in this segment, and you know me, I have absolutely no fear in discussing things with regards to racial types of implications. I know some people in some shows don't want to get into it. I'm not that guy. I'm not a racist guy. You know, I treat people how they treat me, you know, because I know that all white folk ain't good. I know that all black folk ain't great. You know what I mean? So in large part, it ain't got nothing to do with the color of your skin. However, I also know that when it goes down, like kind is likely to stick with like kind. Let me just put that out there for anybody that's listening to me who thinks that Marcus J feels some kind of way, one way or the other. That hopefully makes it plain for you. However, I did my rant last week, SY, on stop and frisk. Stop and frisk. I've got two personal friends. One I've known since high school. One I've known since college. That are members of the New York City Police Department. Two black females who are NYPD cops. They have both been on this show. Lady D and Miss T, not their real names. They have been on this show. One of them supported stop and frisk. The other one did not. This week, Mayor Michael Bloomberg came out and said that stop and frisk, of which has blossomed under his stewardship, he has said that stop and frisk is an issue now. It's an issue because too many white people are being stopped and frisked, and not enough black and Latinos are being stopped and frisked. This is what Mayor Michael Bloomberg has said. Now, last year in 2012, you had 88% of the people who were stopped and frisked, 88% were black or Latino in a town that is 44% white. So think about those numbers for a second. When I remind you that the mayor of this town said that too many white people are being stopped and frisked, but not enough black people are being stopped and frisked. Now, Stephen, when I did my rant last week, I never, ever, ever take comments on my rants when I'm giving them. But you put a comment in that I didn't get to because I don't take comments during my rants.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No. That's not where I'm going. That's not where I'm going. I don't take comments on my rants. However, the comment that you made was very relevant. And I saw it as I was delivering my rant, but you know, when I'm giving my rant, it's the end of the show, so I ain't got time for that. But it's relevant now when you talked about your own personal experience when you lived in New York City. So I'm gonna come to you on this one first, SY and Carlton, if you got a comment, we'll talk about it. I want you really quickly to share with us the comment that you laid out there, and then we'll talk a little bit. I'm gonna get the exact quote from Michael Bloomberg and the fact that Reverend Al Sharpton, shocker, I'm a fan of his, but shocker, had issues with the statement. Stephen, jump in.
I've been stopped several times I forgot how many, but in a short amount of time, I was stopped over 15 to 20 different times over stop and frisk. In about 5 or 6 of those times, I was actually taken down to the police station and actually stripped for that because of the stop and frisk law. Now, honestly, and in full disclosure, I was on the train, the subway. I've seen them stop and frisk a black guy, and he had some weapons illegally, and they stopped him. Okay, fine, but that's not everybody. And I have nowhere near give you the presentation of I'm that type of person. Now I understand you can't look and tell, hey, I could be the same person, be an axe murderer, but still, it's too many of us, and too many times I've been late for work, got in trouble on jobs, whole bunch of crap because of that mess.
That's why when you hear the fact that Mayor Michael Bloomberg says, quote, it's not a disproportionate percentage of those who witnesses and victims describe as committing the murders. In that case, incidentally, I think we disproportionately stop whites too much and minorities too little. In a town, again, that is 44% white, but 88% of the people who are stopped are minorities, and you hear the mayor of that town, who has always been a large supporter of the Stop and Frisk program, what do you say to that?
I lived in New York for a while. And I watched a lot of things around Bloomberg. Straight to the point, I really don't care. Mayor Bloomberg is prejudiced. He is going to let you know it. If the only thing he could do is to take us off the street, cause more violence to us, that is all he's doing. He's giving his police officers, his kind of police officers, the right to go and stop us, abuse us for whatever they deem necessary. If you looked a certain way, well, why did you do that? And now we want to take you down. Maybe I fit some type of description. It really wouldn't even matter. It's just go ahead, stop them. You never know what you might find. You know you're going to find something, whatever it is. He's just doing it. He's prejudiced.
I gave numbers last week. I don't have in front of me now, but when I did my rant before, I had done the research and I had the numbers that stated that most of the people that were stopped and frisked did not yield any arrest. It did not yield any weapons. I think it was something like 1% or maybe 2% of the people that were stopped and frisked that yielded any weapons or anything like that. Now, when you think about that low number, obviously we know we want to get all the weapons off the street that we can. We understand that, and that's fair. However, is it worth it, Stephen, for the fact that you are violating the civil rights of innocent, which we find, innocent citizens? Is it okay to violate an innocent citizen, which you are, because you were stopped and frisked, to piggyback off of what you said earlier? Is it okay for Stephen to be stopped and frisked because Marcus, standing next to him, has a gun in his pocket?
No, it's not. I understand in terms of I'm going on the airport overseas, something like that, but overall, no, not at all. Because it's hard to give the proper conjecture just because of the pain that I went through and going through all of this. And one situation, I was put to the ground where they, get on your knees. Guy comes by me and pushes me down, handcuffs me and everything else. I'm dragged to that 2nd Street station after they switch me and everything else, and people coming around taking pictures and everything else, all for and help me up for 2 hours over nothing. Okay, you're free to go. But because I had a bunch of electronics on me, now mind you, I'm in a suit, but I had a bunch of electronics, 3 laptops, and a bunch of stuff. I stole something. Where am I going with the dress shoes and walking in the middle of the day? I would be running. I would be in a car doing something else, not in the middle of the day. And it's just stuff like that. No, hell's no. Excuse me for that. Not
Anybody that knows Stephen knows that Stephen is one of the nicest, most harmless guys that you'll meet. And so, to be with him, to be around him, to see him, and to assume because of how he looks, and this is somebody that I've known 6 months, a year, maybe, and I've been around him. But if I was just to observe him, and I hope don't take this offensively, I'm just saying, to observe you, Stephen, you don't come across to me as someone that would be doing something untoward at all. You strike me as someone that is about your business. That's always going to be about your business. That's going to be keeping it moving. And so for the police to observe you and to find something about your behavior suspicious, that to me is similar to the sentiments of Reverend Al Sharpton, is profiling. Maybe because I'm in the community that you're in, and I've seen people like you. You and I are more alike than the thug guy in the corner.
this happened in Wall Street when I was put to the ground.
Well, the fact that you was put to the ground has more to do with what with the color of your skin is, and less about what you look like. But
Exactly.
Reverend Al Sharpton says, quote, even in the mostly white areas, the majority of those stopped are young black men. Why are the ones stopped and frisked in areas that we barely are at? That's profiling, and it's been documented. That's why we know that Reverend Al Sharpton has had a incendiary relationship with the NYPD. He's from that town.
Say the least.
He's from that town, and he's had some victories and he's had some defeats. Most notably, the Tawana Brawley defeat, as well as Abner Lewemer and Sean Bell and things of that sort, all in his own hometown. So while I am a strong supporter of the great Reverend, I think it's appropriate for him to speak out. I don't know that his comments are going to come loudly on many ears. However, what he speaks of is what I agree with, and to that you say
I
what?
definitely do. I agree with him as well. And going back to prior conversations we've had tonight, he needs more backing. He needs more people to step up and help like him to speak out for us, or else Bloomberg would have a lot more trouble trying to get away with the things that he's doing.
I think if it was somebody else, unfortunately, if it was somebody else who has Al Sharpton's power, we might have stand a chance.
He just doesn't. He's
just because he's been involved in other things that may not been the best, or he's, like you said, some losses. So people are taking I don't want to get involved.
But you know what the reality
is?
The whole thing about needing a leader from your community. I mean, white folks don't need a leader for their community. You know what I'm saying? We need a leader for our community. I understand that concept. A lot of it comes from the fact that, there's discriminatory practices that, are prevalent in, minority communities. So you do need someone that will speak out loudly, to the masses and say, this is bull, we ain't standing for this. However, a lot of the civil rights leaders that we've had since Malcolm X and Martin Luther King in the 60s and even the 70s Black Power movement, a lot of them are media created. A lot of them are people who have, kind of ascended to the role, based upon what the media wants to have. Al Sharpton did what he did in the late 70s and early 80s, but now he got a book deal with Lil Wayne's company, and he's on MSNBC. Now, anybody that knows me knows that I am a large supporter of his, but, the credibility issue that we have with him is something that may be difficult to overcome. It's the same Lil Wayne who had disparaging things to say about Rosa Parks, not very long ago, and Al Sharpton had a meeting with Rosa Parks' family, against Lil Wayne, and now he's got a book deal with
what's that?
What's that about? That even if they gave him a great deal, I would think that the visual that when that came out in print, that'd be something that he'd want to stay away from. And Jesse Jackson's well documented with his issues, and the fact that people like Tavis Smiley and Cornel West are so obviously against President Obama. I don't think that they're ever going to ascend to a level where the masses of black people are going to support them. But my original question is, are we really looking for civil rights leaders? Or are we going to wait for the media to tell us who we should be following?
With the way it looks, we're going to be waiting for the media. The way it looks,
to tell us who we're going to be following. I mean, Stephen, where do the civil rights leaders come from? I mean, I think
right now we should be at a point. We should be at a point where we, like you said, we don't need leaders. But at this present time, we're looking for leaders, and the only person I could think of is I think of Cory Booker
in Newark,
and I love him to
New
death.
New Jersey.
I love him to death. But at the same time, we're not looking at what we could do for ourselves as a community and stop looking for leaders, because at this time we have the tools, we have the knowledge, we have the education. Even if you didn't have the education, you have common sense.
Right.
You should be enough for you. Here's the tools, use it. we're letting it go by the wayside.
And Live in Radio is every Tuesday night from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. That's Steven Sykes speaking right there. If you want to hear more of what he just gave you, you need to be tuning in Legacy Internet Radio on Tuesdays from 7 to 9 and Live in Radio with Steven Sykes. Marcus J. Ain't No Half Steppin'. Stay with us. We're going to take another break. We still going, y'all, because we got good stuff going on. We ain't even get into the George Zimmerman trial, which we will do coming out of the break. Marcus J. with Steven Sykes and S.Y. Butler. We lost Carlton Banks, but that's cool. We love him. We'll see you next week. Marcus J. Ain't No Half Steppin'. Back in a minute.